Yeah. Welcome to the Business of Cake Making podcast.
Welcome.
You can tell this is the second one we've recorded in like 10 minutes.
Yeah. No, it's longer than that.
It is longer than that. It is longer than that.
Yeah.
So we don't have a catch up because we just did that because we are doing this 2 recordings in one day.
Yeah.
So, but this is the last episode for 2 weeks now. So you won't hear from us for 2 weeks because we have 2 weeks off. Yay! Yeah. And Sammy will be out having a van photographed and all the rest of it and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So yeah,
I'm about it on the other side.
Yeah, on the other side. And I'm just going to very, very quickly talk about the Baking Club. The Baking Club.
Yes.
So come along and join the Baking Club. I'm afraid the wait list has ended now. However, because it's you, our dear listener, if you use the code podcast 00, you can get a free month to just try it out. So if you don't know if it's for you, so come over to daisycakeandco.com, click on the Baking Club, and if you look at the membership levels, there is a £12 per month level. It's got recipes, it's got posts on how to do things, it's got posts on different ingredients, it's got videos, it's got all sorts of stuff on there. If you're not sure if it's for you, but you want to try it out for a month, come over, click on the £12, put in podcast 00, and because it's you, you can have a month free. So there you go. Right.
What's that code again?
Podcast 00.
Do you know what? I wrote it down wrong.
Podcast 00.
Yeah.
But come over to daisycakeandco.com and click on the Baking Club and you can sign up there. Right, so last week we had a replay, I don't know how you'd call it.
Mini-sode.
Of episode 29, because we thought it was rather good and worth a re-listen.
Yes, back in 2021.
Which was a long time ago. So, but this is the episode we originally planned, which was an update of that episode.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff has actually changed.
I mean, you've moved once, twice. I've moved since then. I've pivoted my business and do things. I'm not doing the same thing. You are pivoting your business. So a lot of stuff has changed.
A different government.
The world's coming. The world is crashing around us. Other than that, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. I'm happy. I never listen to the news. I'm a happy bunny.
It's the best way to be. The best way to be. Right. So last week we had all our baking hints and tips, etc., etc. This week we're just going to fire some other hints and tips out there, aren't we?
Yeah. Can I just talk about something?
Of course.
Price of chocolate.
Oh.
I went to Booker, my local cash and carry.
Yeah.
And I was looking at bags of chocolate, and they were £40.
Oh my God. See, even the cheap chocolate, excuse me, the cheap chocolate used to be 30p for a 100-gram bar. It's like over £1 now.
Yeah.
Over
You're lucky if you get it for 75p if you search for it.
Yeah. So what I've started...
I do lots of maths.
Yeah.
I do lots of maths. When I'm walking around, I go, right, so you've got 200 grams in that one. You've got 100 grams in that one. If you buy 2 of those...
What I've started doing... I remember when we went to the Cake and Bake Show, Eric Lanlard was going on about the, baking chocolate, because he likes to use top-notch chocolate. That's what he likes to use, top-notch. I personally think if you're bunging it in a brownie, if you're putting it in a cake, and you're not eating it as the chocolate or as ganache, I'm not that bothered that it's not the top chocolate. And so I've started buying the baking, because I used to think that the baking chocolate was like a chocolate flavoured candy. But he was saying that it's all the bits and pieces of different chocolates all thrown into one. So it's like a blend. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that if I'm putting it in a brownie. I'm okay with that.
I've stopped buying baking chocolate on what Eric said.
Oh, did you?
And now I trot on around to the sweetie section.
But is that because? So what are you using your chocolate in?
My cakes, my ganache, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So using it in ganache, I think you do need proper chocolate in ganache.
Yeah.
So I use it to put in.
I very rarely now buy, because I really don't have the storage here either to buy the big bags of chocolate.
Yeah.
And I find they just don't last me.
See, the big bags, I don't think
I burn the pan.
I don't think I've ever bought big bags. I know Calibut chocolate is wonderful. It's so lovely.
Yeah.
But it is really, it's always been much, much more expensive. And unless you're using it for a specific reason like ganache, then we just had a little crash. It's fine. We're back. We were talking about chocolate. I'm sorry if we repeat ourselves.
Yes. So it's very expensive.
It is very expensive.
Yeah.
I think thing is though, it's like something that I have learned, because obviously I do a lot of pre-packaged food, and I don't like to buy the really, really cheap chocolate, because the really, really cheap chocolate has got too many ingredients in that you've then got to put on your ingredients list.
Yeah.
And the more expensive doesn't have all those fillers. So if you buy like cheap chocolate from things like Lidl and that, they now have things like peanut paste and hazelnut paste. And I'm like, I don't want to be putting that on my ingredients. So I actually use a slightly more expensive one because I don't want to list all those ingredients. And also,
I did buy a lot when I was in France as well.
Yes, you did, didn't you? Yeah. Because you don't, what you do, you don't list ingredients. So you're kind of okay.
No.
You're all right. But you find as soon as you start having to list ingredients on packages, oh my life.
Yeah.
The shit they put in stuff.
Yeah.
They put a lot of crap in stuff.
Okay, shall we crack on? Crack on!
Cracking. I've got one about eggs. Aha! Segue. So one of my top tips, and I think I have said this on the podcast before, but I'm going to say it again. When you're breaking your eggs, break your eggs in a separate bowl from the rest of your ingredients, especially if you've got something expensive like chocolate. Because whilst you don't get many bad eggs, and I think I've probably had 3 in my entire baking career, you do occasionally get them. And oh my God, are they vile. They are just, I don't know how they creep through, quite frankly. I don't know how they creep through the net.
They're hidden.
Yeah. And as soon as you crack a bad egg, you know. But if you crack it and you've just cracked it straight into your mix and that's all chocolate and stuff, you've lost that entire mix.
Yeah. I like I used to break them all into a bowl.
Yeah.
But I've been so scarred by you telling you this time and time again, that I do break it into I might break a couple, 2 or 3.
Yeah. I do 2 or 3 a go.
Bowl.
Yeah.
And then put it into the mix. I do.
I had one once that I literally, as I cracked it, it didn't go anywhere because it was black inside. I've never smelled anything so bad in my life. It was the whole thing inside. As I cracked it open, I'm like, oh. But I have had another one where I was making a brownie and I just cracked it straight in, and that's it. That's all your melted chocolate and butter and everything. And it wasn't until I was mixing it, I'm like, that stinks. Really stinks. Mm. The other thing about cracking eggs into a separate bowl is that
if you get eggshell in it,
it sinks to the bottom and sticks to the bottom of the whatever you're cracking it into. And so then you don't pour it into your mix.
So you're meant to keep your eggs in the fridge, as we discussed with Natalie Stanton, the health expert, and safety expert, but bring them up to room temperature before you use them. But I learned an interesting fact today about eggs. Do you know when you're separating them?
Yes.
They separate easier if they're cold.
It's great.
Yeah, and they're less likely to break. So if you're making meringue or something like that, then that's
because I mean, the fresher they are, the easier they are to separate, aren't they?
Yeah.
But I suppose if they're cold, they're more solidified and
Go globby.
Globby.
Yeah.
Nice.
Another thing I read, because I don't make cookies very often.
Yeah.
You tend to as well.
Actually, I'm stopped making cookies. No one buys my cookies. I'm not making them anymore. I'm done with them. No one buys them. Yeah.
Done. It said cold eggs are best for cookie dough.
See, that would make sense. Yeah, that would make sense.
If you whip cold eggs, it results in dense batters.
Oh,
if you put that into your mix, a cold egg into your mix, it creates a denser batter.
Oh, I suppose it's all the same thing, isn't it? It's all the fat within it is tighter, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all very interesting.
Yeah.
Not loose and fluid and and doing natural dancing and There's a lot about eggs. There's a lot that you can know about. That book that I've got, that Sift book, there's a whole chapter on eggs. Fascinating.
Yeah. I've ordered a new cake book. It's tomorrow.
Oh, what you got?
It's a vegan one. My friend recommended it.
Nice.
For that. So, on the previous episode, we talked about butter, and I was talking about putting 3 in your mixer when you're making your icing sugar.
You're making your buttercream, yes.
And I listened to that and I thought, why did I always used to do 3 in my butter? 3 slabs of butter, 250.
Is that because you were worried about it being too tall, too high in the bar? Oh.
I guess so, but I always do 4 now, and it is so much easier.
You're doing a third extra. That's why.
Yeah, 4 butters and 2 kilogram bags of icing sugar. Makes my life so much easier. And then whatever's left, I just put in a pot and put it in.
Just save it. Always save it. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say something else then. Oh, yes. And we also spoke about different types of butter and everything.
Yes, because you were doing an experiment with your multiple butters.
Yeah. And I also just buy I tend to buy the cheapest butter because it's $1.99.
I think that's actually that. As I was listening to that yesterday, and you were saying that you buy like 2 Lurpak, 2 Anchor, because Lurpak and Anchor have gone down to smaller packets for the same price. And so it just screws up. So if you're buying a box of icing sugar and a packet of butter, it screws it all up if you've got a 200 gram thing of butter. So butter's obviously raised in price considerably since we made that episode.
Yeah. And also, we were talking about if it's oversweet, like with the vegan buttercream.
Yeah.
So we spoke about this with Carol from
yes, Cakes by Carol. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And using half salted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does make it.
I have done that. So when I've done like 4 things of butter, I've used one of them as unsalted, one of them as salted. So I've done like a quarter of it salted, and it will cut through it.
Yeah, I think our palates are so accustomed to that sweet flavour.
Yeah.
That it was different on my palate, and that's why I was like, I like this. But I definitely think it's nicer.
Yeah.
Because I do that with the vegan buttercream as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the vegan buttercream. So we touched on the vegan because I think Flora plant-based butter was just coming out then, and often the vegan one is much cheaper.
Yeah,
it's on special offer. I mean, I don't, again, for the same reason as chocolate, it's got a lot more ingredients. So if I'm doing it in something that I have to put the ingredients list on, I don't use it because I can't be bothered. Yeah. But also,
I use that in my home. I use Flora butter. Now, all the time.
We never buy normal butter for our normal home now because it's just so expensive. But also, even so, I had to buy some butter today, and I happened to be going past Marks and Spencer's. Marks and Spencer's butter is £2. Little butter's £1.99. I'm not being funny. There's such a little difference in the cost of butter across. I think the only one that's really more expensive is Waitrose, but they're just more expensive for everything.
Yeah,
but
pop to the shop, if you forget your butter and you pop to the shop, like your local Tesco, it's £2.10.
Wow. Oh.
If you go to the big store, it's £1.99.
Yeah. Be prepared. Listen to 2 weeks ago. Be prepared. Right. Talking about butter, I very rarely bake with butter anymore. Very, very rarely bake butter. I bake cookies with butter because it's got a high fat content, and I bake brownies with butter. I never, ever, ever bake cakes with butter anymore, ever. I use oil.
What? Yes, I was going to say so.
Yeah, I use oil. And I use oil, and it was because of the reason of the pre-packaged goods, because I used to always use like a baking spread like Stork or like a shop own brand. And I was finding that I was having to write all the ingredients from the baking spread onto the label. And I just got really fed up with seeing all these ingredients on it. So I changed to oil. And it's wonderful. I love it. I love baking with oil. You need to use about 80% in weight. So if you're using 100 grams of butter or baking spread or Stork or whatever, so 100 grams, you need to use 80 grams of oil, because butter and baking spread has moisture in it that oil doesn't. And if you use extra, you're going to get a greasy cake. So you need to cut it down by about 20%.
So do you work out the ratios yourself, or do you use a specific recipe?
No, I work it out myself, but it's actually really easy. So if you've got 500 grams of butter, put 500 grams divided by 100 times by 80. So divide by 100, which is your 100%, times by 80, and that will tell you how much to use. Really, really, actually really easy to do. And you weigh it. Don't try and measure it like in a jug, because oil is heavier than that. So weigh it. And I mix it in the same way. So I put it in with my sugar first and mix it. So I like cream it. I then put my eggs in and mix it again. So it's the same process. Yeah. But I find it's given like a really light, fluffy cake. And it's like a really fine crumb you get. And the other bonus for me is that because I'm selling my cakes out of a shed on the side of my house, and it gets quite cold in the winter. Oil is an unsaturated fat, so it doesn't go hard when it's cold. So you don't get a hard cake. So if you put a cake in the fridge and the cake goes hard, you don't get that with an oil cake, because it's an unsaturated. So if you're a baker that puts their cakes in the fridge because you have buttercream cakes and you want to refrigerate it, use oil and you won't get a hard cake. You just get hard buttercream.
Yeah. Excuse me. Sometimes if you eat a cold cake, it has. You're like, oh, is this dry?
It's like chewy almost, isn't it? Yeah. And it's because butter and margarine are saturated fats that go hard when they're cold, whereas oil stays liquid when it's cold. Yes. I love baking with oil. It's just like a thing that I've really picked up on recently. Yeah. So, yeah. Also on that vein, so I did a post on Instagram a little while ago, and the more I started looking into it, the more I was like, oh my God. In the last episode, we were talking about how different measurements in the US and the UK and Australia were different. Yeah. Actual ingredients are different. So our butter has got more fat content than American butter. American butter has more moisture in it than ours. Creams, so things like double cream, so they have heavy cream and we have double cream and whipping cream. And again, the fat content varies from country to country to country. So, and also chocolate. I mean, we all know that American chocolate's very different from UK chocolate. So if you're using a recipe that you find online and it doesn't work, it could be that the ingredients are just so different you can't get it to work in the same way because the makeup of the ingredient is so different.
Yeah. So I listened to a very interesting podcast earlier.
Was it ours?
Yeah, I did listen to ours today. But the one I listened to was called, I'm going to open it up, it might play, Need to Know. As in need your brain.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I want the one before, because they were talking about but they because it was International Woman Day.
Oh yeah,
they were talking about American bakers, women bakers.
Oh okay.
I only knew 2 of them. They spoke so many, but they were saying about the different measurements. There as well, which was very interesting.
Yeah,
there were books that they all knew.
Yeah,
but I'd never heard of any of them. I guess it's like Delia Smith.
Yeah, probably. And good old Mary, who was 90 this week.
Wow.
I know. But the other thing, because then I put that up on Instagram. I put that post up on Instagram, and someone else then messaged me and said it will also depend on your altitude. I mean, in the UK, our altitude is pretty consistent. You know, we don't have any very, very high altitude. No. But if someone's written a recipe who's at very, very high altitude, the way it will react and the pressure, it's the pressure on it will be a very different recipe. And I thought that was fascinating because she said, I'm at really high altitude and I have to adjust recipes. Otherwise, they just end up flat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you could bake a cake using a recipe that you've picked up from holiday.
Yeah. And it'll come out home and rubbish.
Yeah.
Because you've got different ingredients, you've got different measurements, and you've got a different atmospheric pressure. What?
I know, it's crazy.
Nuts.
It's crazy. Crazy. So, I want to talk about ovens.
Ovens. I love talking about ovens. I could talk about ovens all day. Yeah. Did I tell you about our oven when our oven blew up?
No, recently.
Well, when I say blew up, the heating element went. Did I tell you about that?
Yeah.
So the heating element, I don't know whether I talked about it on the podcast, but what I'm just going to say is if your heating element goes in your oven, look it up online to learn how to do it. We spent £150 getting it done. Could have spent 30. It's really easy.
It is.
Really easy. And you just do it from the inside of the oven. You don't have to pull the oven out, which is what we thought we were going to have to do. Yes, go on.
So not all ovens are equal. They're all different right across the board. So I've recently moved again. This oven here I've got is absolutely fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
But obviously when I moved in, I didn't know.
Scary times.
Yeah. So I had to do 2 or 3 bakes before I knew where its hot spots were, because a lot of ovens have a hot spot.
I've never met an oven that hasn't got a hot spot.
No. So, I mean, obviously you can buy an oven thermometer, if you want to really regulate the temperatures.
But even that I found, because I've got a really nice, what's the name of it? Mine is a Blizzard. I've got a Blizzard commercial oven. Before that, I bought one and I bought it and it sat in a box for ages, and then I used it and it was so awful, but it sat in a box for so long I couldn't send it back. And so I sold it on eBay. And it was awful. It was meant to be a commercial oven, but it was so bad. And it was because the hot spots were so extreme.
Yeah.
So extreme. And this one I've had for less than a year. And the first time I baked with it, it had a hot spot in it. All ovens have hot spots.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just the airflow and the way it happens. Yeah. I love my oven in here now. Mm. The best domestic oven I've ever had was my Neff in my last house. That was great. That was amazing.
I don't even know what ovens I've got.
The one we've got here in our indoors is a hot point. The one we've got.
Mine's a Levaco or Lenico or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's lovely. I really like it.
Yeah. Not all ovens are equal. Definitely.
No, definitely not. So, we touched on this, I think, recently.
Yeah.
Always preheat your oven.
Yeah.
Because your baking powder and your bicarbonate of soda react. So they need a certain temperature to activate. And you won't get the optimal rise if you don't, for your finished product, if you don't heat your oven. That's the chemical reaction, the heat. Yeah. And
it causes the carbon dioxide the hot air causes the carbon dioxide to increase, which gives you your fluffiness.
Yes.
So I've got a lot of carbon dioxide in me because I'm fluffy. That's what menopausal women put on weight. They get hot because they're fluffy. It's not the menopause. It's just my carbon dioxide getting hot.
So I would also recommend that you prepare your tins. So
See, we were talking about this, and we have different approaches on this, right? So go on. You tell me your approach.
So I would say prepare your tins, grease-proof paper them before you start baking. So that's my first job. I always do my tins first, and then make my cake. So they're ready. Put the mixture in. Go straight in the
ready to go. Right. So I start my butter or oil and sugar creaming. I then put my eggs in, and I then do my tins, because you have to cream your butter and sugar to get lots of air and everything into them. And I think while I'm stood there waiting for them to get that, I might as well be doing something else. So I do my tins while that's happening, and then go back to the baking, because I'm trying to use the time differently. So what do you do when your sugar and butter is creaming? What do you do?
I'm weighing out my flour and cracking.
Oh yeah, I do that as well. I do my tins and then do the weigh. Yeah.
But so one of my I've written down here 8 rules for baking. So I've got various things written.
Right.
But one of them is prep your ingredients. But I always kind of do it half and half. Half prep.
Yeah. See, I get to a certain point. Obviously, I make sure I have all the ingredients before I start. But yeah,
that was another one of my things. So you're going to make a recipe. Don't start making it. We're all guilty of it. Don't start making it and then go, oh, I'll just get that. Oh,
I'll just get the dates out of the cupboard. Oh, I've got no dates. Yeah.
So make sure you have got the correct ingredients before you start. Because when you start going a bit crazy, looking up alternatives to.
I made almond macaroons recently, not almond macarons, macaroons. And I thought, I'm going to make them for the shed. And I got out some ground almonds. I'm like, great, I've got a packet of ground almonds. That's perfect. I've got egg whites. I've got everything I need. And then I started mixing the egg whites. So all the egg whites were all lovely and fluffy. And then I poured the almonds in. I thought, my packet of almonds were like 200 grams or something, and I needed 400 or 250. So whilst I had them, didn't quite have enough of them.
Yeah.
So
that's quite important.
Yeah. Make sure you got your ingredients. But I don't weigh out all of them before I start, because like you say, your mix is mixing. While that's mixing, you use your time elsewhere to sort your other bits out.
Yeah. Sort your bits out.
Right. So something that I recommend a lot, and I think I've used this as a product of the week, and it's very basic, is a rubber spatula. Make sure you've got a good spatula and wipe your bowl down often. So while it's mixing, stop it, scrape your bowl down and mix again. So because there will always be that bit that sticks to the outside of the bowl. Yeah. And if it's not getting mixed in. Yeah. And then that's when you end up with that smeggy part of the egg that hasn't mixed in, you know when you go to pour it in and there's always like that little, it's like, I haven't mixed that bit of egg white. Yeah. So scrape your bowl down often, but do it with a rubber spatula. And also the rubber spatula, it just cuts down on waste. It just gets everything out of your bowl better.
I don't actually use a rubber spatula because I use my friend, the Kenwood.
Oh, you've got your Kenwood spatulas, haven't you? Yeah. But they're nice, thin, flexible, will proper scrape everything.
In all the nooks and crannies.
Yeah. But just stop your mixer every so often. Give it a scrape down.
100%, because it does make a difference. I mean, you don't want to over mix.
No.
This was another thing I was going to talk about is, so you get all of these different recipes, and you get red velvet, don't overmix.
Yeah.
Or vanilla or chocolate, make sure you mix it for a little bit longer. So it's really distributed. I guess, hopefully, the recipe you're following would say that.
I'll show you.
Yeah, all of mine are kind of handwritten or
scrappy little notes. Yeah.
So I do tend to write on my notes.
Yeah.
Like vegan cakes as well. Don't overmix. I do write on my notes.
I always think the rule of thumb is once the flour has gone in, don't mix it too long, because you don't want to overwork the gluten in the flour, because if you overwork the gluten, that's when it goes bready. Yeah. Which is when you're making bread and you're kneading it and you're really, really working that gluten, you get the gluten strands coming out. And the gluten is the protein. I've learned so much recently about all this shit. Can you tell? Oh, too much of a geek about it. So the gluten is your protein, and if you work it too much, that's when you start to get a dense bready cake. So I always think once the flour is added, minimize the mixing.
So I will do about an extra minute or 2 minutes.
See, I wouldn't. See, I hand mix. Once flour's in, I hand mix. Except for reverse creaming. That's another method completely, because you coat your flour in the fat.
Yeah.
So it protects the gluten strands.
About that today on the podcast I listened to.
Yeah, so a reverse cream is where you mix your butter with your sugar and flour, and you're coating your gluten with the butter, with your fat, which protects it from developing too much. But I would never go a minute or two. That's a lot.
Both vanilla and chocolate.
Chocolate, I think, needs to be a bit denser anyway. Interesting.
My cakes are always very moist
and light and fluffy. Light and fluffy. See, so another thing that I do to get flavour in, especially citrus, because citrus is quite a delicate flavour, lemon, lime, orange. If you zest your citrus, so zest your lemon into your sugar and then massage it. Or mix it, put it in the mixer. So put the zest and the sugar in the mixer and mix it up. So then the oils in that zest will coat your sugar, and then that distributes the flavour better.
That's actually a good tip, because what I would do is... You're making a very good point there. It's my pleasure. I put it in when I cream the butter and the sugar. So I guess, in a way, if you do it at that point, at the sugar point, you just put it in with the sugar and mix it up while you're weighing out your butter. Yeah. You're giving it even more, like the sugar will absorb it.
Yeah. And also the granules, I think the harsh sides of the granules of the sugar will push against the zest and get more oil out of it, because that's where the flavour is, isn't it? It's the oil in the zest.
I'm definitely going to do that.
Yeah.
Because I'm all about that.
Zing.
Yeah.
All about the zing.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you bake a cake, you follow the recipe, don't you?
Yeah.
So I am not one of you get these people and they go, well, I put a bit of this and a bit of that.
I measure and weigh always.
Yeah. I have to stick to the recipe.
But then I write recipes, don't I?
Yeah.
So I'm kind of making it up as I go along quite often. But I do always, because I'm writing recipes, I always measure and weigh stuff so then I can write it down. I couldn't just do a bit of that and a bit of this. I couldn't do that. No.
It's magic, and you're following the wizard.
Yeah.
Magic of your recipe.
And it's the thought. I mean, I've seen also some people on social media, when it says a cup, they go and get a teacup. And I'm like, that's not right. Because that teacup's probably not the right size compared to your eggs. And I'm like, Yeah. And I get a bit scared about that.
Yeah. So I highly recommend you follow the recipe.
Yes. The other thing, actually, going back to, you talking about butter earlier, and you talked about salted butter.
Yeah.
Always use salt. Always use salt in your bakes. Always season your bakes.
Oh, Yeah.
Never miss out. So it's an essential. I know it's only half a teaspoon. Yeah. Oh no, I'd put it in vanilla cake.
You?
Yeah, because what salt does is it's like if you're eating your dinner and you don't put salt on it, it doesn't taste as much. So if you do the same with sweet stuff, it brings out the flavour just a teeny bit. I mean, chocolate every single time. If you don't salt chocolate,
100%.
Yeah, but any flavour at all, a little bit of salt will just enhance that flavour. So I put it in all my cakes.
I'm going to be trying that. Salt in all cakes.
And it's only a little bit. It's only like half a teaspoon sort of thing.
Yeah.
But if you ever eat in a bowl, if you've got peas on the side of your plate, you ever tried eating peas without salt on it?
It's like putting salt on tomatoes.
Yeah, and on chips. You don't eat chips without salt.
Or an egg. Oh.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is it just accentuates that flavour, and it will do the same with sweet stuff. Yeah. Okay. Right, I've got one more. Actually, I've got more, but I've got one more that I want to. And I know I've used this as a product of the week before, and I've probably used it as a top tip. But that's because I'm in love with them, and they're my baking rods for big cakes. I love them.
Oh, yes.
I love them. Yeah. So baking rods, they are little spikes that you put in the bottom of your bake, and they heat up and they cook your cake from the inside out whilst your cake is cooking from the outside in, and it just evens out your bake. If you're making a big cake, say you're doing a 12-inch, put 2 or 3 baking rods in, it will speed up the process and it will even out the bake, and it will be less likely to dome, the whole dome thing. I love them. Just love them.
Yeah, I use mine if I'm making a what's that called?
A dome
cake. A dome cake.
Yeah, but that's like a big amount of Yeah, that sometimes they can take longer to bake.
Yeah. And
can you remember back in the days of the giant cupcakes?
Yeah.
How long those bases used to take. Yeah. Why did we not know about baking domes back in those days? Yeah. Baking rods, back in those days, because those cupcake bases used to take forever.
Yeah.
So I use baking rods.
Fashion and flash in the pan.
I'm so pleased they went. I use baking rods in big tray bakes because I do like 11 by 7 tray bakes, and I always use a baking rod in them. And also in loaf cakes, because I cut my loaf cakes into slices, I don't want like a big dome in the middle, although they look nice on the table, a big domed loaf cake.
I do. I haven't done one for a very long time, but I have made a very large fruit cake.
Oh, yeah.
12-inch. I've used it as well. And they're easy to pull out at the end.
Oh God, yeah, they just
upside down. You could a disc on the end, so
you just twist and pull it out, and that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you've got? I think we're done.
I think we are pretty much up to date.
Yeah, I think we might have a couple of extra little bits and pieces over on Patreon if you want to come over there. Patreon.com/The Business of Cake Making podcast over on Patreon. And we've got Top Tip, Product of the Week over there. Come over. It's just a £5 a month and you get us for a little bit more.
Yay! Thank you very much for listening. Know you are loved. Be careful out there. Sharpen your knives.
Was that in case of intruders or just to get a better cut?
If you cut yourself and it's a blunt knife, you get a worse cut.
I thought you'd been listening to too many true crime podcasts.
No, mine's baking. Yeah. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much for listening. Bye 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 bye. Sometimes I just forget to say it.